So good day everyone. So at this point, we will going to talk about another topic for literary criticism. So first we have the Marxism and literary theory, and of course last we will going to talk about the structuralism. So first we have the introduction of Marxist literary theory. So at this one, it defines that it is a kind of approach to analyze literature that draws from the idea of Karl Marx and later on from the Marxist thinkers. So at its core, it sees that this kind of approach or literature, it is a kind of product and response to the economic, social structure of its time. So to understand further what is this kind of theory, we have these different we have this different characterization of this theory. So first we have the class conflict and the class distinction. So Marxist critics, they examine how literature represents the tension between different social classes, especially between the ruling class and the working class. So this kind of struggle often manifests in the character relationships, plot lines, and of course the setting. Then the second one, we have the social and political meaning over the aesthetic value. So unlike the formalist approaches, this kind of one or this Marxist theory, it focuses on the text form, the structures, the style. So the Marxist literary theory, it emphasizes the content and the context. So it looks like that the literary work says about the society, the politics, and of course the economics. So here the aesthetic, they do not ignore this one, but it's somehow considered as the secondary works ideological function, how it reinforces or resists dominant power structure. Then the second one, we have the challenging economic inequalities. So here the Marxist critics, they often favored text that critic capitalist system, highlights its struggle to oppress or to the oppressed or the different vision of social change, such the literature, it seems as a tool for raising class consciousness and advocating for equality. So there are different writers such as the Charles Dickinson, Upton Chancellor, and many more. So here or them, they studied from this kind of angle for their portrayals of poverty, labor conditions, and of course the systematic injustice. Now at this point, we will going to talk another part for the Marxist literary theory. At this point, we will going to talk about the key concepts of Marxist criticism. So first, we have literature is a product of economic and social conditions. So Marxist critics, they view literature not as an isolated or purely imaginative condition, but as a reflection of the material conditions in which it was produced. So every literary work here, it is shaped by the historical and social context of its time, especially the economic structures that influences human relationship and its institution. Then second one, we have analyzes cultural production as an influence by capitalism. So Marxist critics, they see all forms of culture, which literature, the films, the music, art, not just an entertainment, but also it's shaped by the capitalist system. So capitalism, it turns culture into a product or profit, and often manipulates its to support consumerist values. So this means that literary texts are not neutral. They can sense or they can serve to either challenge or reinforce capitalist ideologies. Then we also have seeks to reveal ideologies that maintains class structures. So here a core aim of Marxist criticism is to uncover the hidden ideological within text, sets of beliefs and values that helps to justify or normative equal favor of relationship, especially those between social classes. So that is for the key concepts of Marxist criticism. So now let's proceed to another one. So now let's talk about the major Marxist influencers or influences. So first we have Grigory Lukács. So the realism and historical materialism. So he is known for linking realism in literature and art with historical materialism, the Marxist method of analyzing social and historical development through immaterial conditions and class struggles. Then we also have Walter Benjamin. So he explored how mechanical reproduction changed the nature of art and its political function. Then lastly, we have Frank Frost School. So he merged Marxist theory with a critical theory, psychoanalysis, and sociological to critique capitalism, culture, and ideology. So those are the major Marxist influences, the key concepts of Marxist criticism, and of course the introduction of Marxist literary theory.
Okay, so now we are going to talk about the critical theory and mass culture. So in this slide, we are going to explore how critical theory views mass culture, especially in capitalist societies. So according to this perspective, what we often think of as an entertainment like jazz, films, and advertisements is not just for pleasure. So these forms of mass culture actually reflect and reinforce the values of the capitalist system. So to begin with, mass culture mirrors this structure of capitalist work. So just like how workers in capitalist systems are expected to perform repetitive, predictable tasks and mass-produced cultural products also follows repetitive formulas. So for example, popular songs often use the same beats and themes, and also blockbuster movies follow familiar plots, and commercials repeat similar messages. So this standardization in culture reflects the assembly line nature of capitalist production. So it values efficiency and mass appeal over individuality or depth. Next, we are going to consider how culture serves economic interest. So in capitalist society, almost everything is treated as product, including the culture. So the main goal becomes profit, not enlightenment or self-expression. So cultural products are created not to make people think deeply, but to be sold quickly and widely. So instead of challenging the people to reflect or question the reality, these products encourage passive consumption. So it means that they are, just going to think, but not because of the reality, but because of the product or about the product. So it ensures that people remain entertained and distracted from the inequalities around them, such as the products. And also lastly, this type of culture promotes standardized, easily consumable content. So this means that these things we watch, listen to, or see are made quickly to be understood, easily enjoyed, and instantly satisfying. So they avoid complexity, ambiguity, or discomfort. So deep reflection is replaced with surface level of enjoyment. So as a result, culture loses its power to truly educate or inspire people. Instead, it becomes a tool for social control, keeping people satisfied but not aware. So now we are going to talk about the contemporary Marxist critics. So this slide introduces us to some key figures in contemporary Marxist criticism who build who build upon earlier theories and brought new insights into how culture, literature, and ideology work in modern society. So let's begin with Raymond Williams. So He is a British theorist who developed a concept known as cultural materialism. So he believed that culture is not just about high art or literature. So it includes everyday practices, beliefs, language, and values. So Williams argued that culture is deeply connected to material conditions like class and economy. So he also emphasized that culture both reflects and shapes social structures, and it can either support or challenge the dominant ideologies of the people. So his work opened the door to studying literature and other culture texts as part of larger system of power and history. So next we have here Terry Eagleton. So he is well known Marxist literary theorist. So he made complex ideas about ideology and literature more accessible to readers. So, um, in his work, so Eagleton insists that literature is not politically neutral. So it means that it always reflects certain beliefs, values, and power structures. So from him, so studying literature also means understanding how it is influenced by class struggle, economic conditions, and social forces. So he also encouraged readers to see how literature can be a space rather for resistance and social critique. Okay, so next we have here Frank Lentricia. So he is another important figure who challenged earlier methods of literary analysis. So in his book After the New Criticism, so he criticized the idea of studying literature in isolation from history, society, and politics. So he argues that literature should be seen in relation to the larger system it exists within, so especially economic and ideological ones. So his work pushed for a more political and socially aware way of reading text. And then finally, we have here Frederick Jameson. So he offers a powerful Marxist interpretation of modern, postmodern culture. So he examined how culture has changed under late capitalism. So where everything becomes commodified, even our emotions, memories, and identities. So Jameson argued that in this era, cultural products are no longer created for meaning or truth, but are treated as items to be packaged, sold, and consumed. So he described post-modern culture as depthless. So it means there is a lack of emotional or historical weight. So through his work, he reveals how capitalism can even absorb and neutralize resistance by turning it into another consumer product. So that's all about the what we call this the contemporary Marxist critics. So they are all the critics from Raymond Williams, Terry Eagleton, Lentricia, and Frederick Jameson. So now we are going to tackle about the influence of Marxist on the other theories. So in this slide, so we are going to focus on the lasting impact of Marxist theory on the other schools of thought and methods of criticism. So over time, so Marxist ideas, especially about class, ideology, and power, have influenced and shaped a number of other theoretical approaches in literature and cultural studies. So, one of the most important areas influenced by Marxism is the New Historicism. So, this approach examines literature within its historical context. So, from the word New Historicism, so it influ- It examines the historical context, treating text as a cultural artifacts that are part of ongoing social and political struggles. So it looks at how literature interacts with the power structures of its time and how it reflects or resists dominant ideologies. So this is similar to Marxist theories concern with how texts are connected to the class and power. So another approach is cultural materialism. So it combines the historical analysis with a clear political goal. So it emphasizes how literature is embedded in a material world of class structures, economic forces, and political power. So it often focuses on how text can be read in ways that challenge existing hierarchies and give voice to the marginalized people. So this school of thought is deeply rooted in Marxist principles, but tends to be more focused on the potential for resistance and change. And lastly, we have here postmodern cultural theory. So it also draws from Marxism. So it particularly critique the consumer culture and the commodification rather of everyday life. So it explores how culture under capitalism becomes dominated by images, marketing, and spectacle. So, this theory investigates how identity, reality, and even memory are shaped by mass media and capitalist consumption. So, it questions what is real and what is manufactured in a world saturated by products and advertisements. And in addition to influencing these specific theories, so Marxism has also encouraged the breakdown of rigid academic boundaries. So in the past, literature, history, politics, and economics were often studied separately. But Marxist criticism showed that these all areas are deeply interconnected. So this led to a more interdisciplinary approach to literary studies. So where multiple lenses are used together to better understand the relation between text, culture, and society rather. So that's all for my part. So the next topic will be discussed by the another reporter.
Hello everyone, I am Mr. Rendina, and today I'll be going to discuss the two major literary theories, the structuralism and post-structuralism. Structuralism focuses on uncovering the underlying structures that shape how we understand text. It is largely influenced by Ferdinand de Saussure's theory of language, where meaning is produced through a system of signs and differences. In contrast, post-structuralism arose to challenge structuralism. It questions the idea that language and meaning are stable. Philosophers like Jacques Derrida and Michel Foucault argue that meaning is always shifting and stable and influenced by power and context. Together, these two movements have greatly shaped how we read, interpret, and question literature. So now, let's focus more closely on structuralism. Structuralists wanted to make literary studies more scientific and objective. Instead of focusing on history, society, or the author's background, they concentrated on how the form and structure of text organize meaning. Ferdinand de Saussure, a Swiss linguist, introduced the idea that language is a system of signs. Now, in his view, every sign has two parts: the signifier or the word or the sound, and the signified, the concept it represents. Meaning is not natural or fixed. It is created through the differences between signs within the system. Saussure distinguished between long, the whole system of language, and parole, the individual acts of speech. Now, several key thinkers expanded structuralism into different fields. We have here Roman Jakobson. He is a Russian linguist, emphasized how language operates through a structured set of functions, especially in poetry and communication. The next one is Claude Lévi-Strauss, a French anthropologist applied structuralist methods to myths and cultural practices, suggesting that universal mental structures shape human behavior. The next one is Zvetan Todorov, a literary theorist worked on the grammar of narratives, showing that stories often follow a set of predictable structures. Next one is A.J. Gurmas, a semiotician, created the actential model. It is a tool for analyzing the roles and function of characters in the stories. The next one is Gerard Janet, a French literary critic, developed narratology by studying narrative structures, including how time and perspective are organized in storytelling. The last one is Roland Barthes. Barthes, a French theorist, explored how meaning is constructed through cultural signs and text. His work in semiotics opened the way to questioning the idea of a single, unstable meaning. Now, moving on to post-structuralism. No, post-structuralism emerged in the 1960s and 1970s as a reaction against the certainty that structuralism proposed. Post-structuralists argue that meaning is never fixed or stable. It is always dependent on context, interpretation, and even contradictions within the language itself. One of the key figures, Jacques Derrida, developed a method called deconstruction. Deconstruction shows that texts often undermine their own meanings, revealing internal conflicts and endless interpretations. Derrida believed that because meaning relies on differences and context, it can never be pinned down absolutely. Michel Foucault added that another important perspective by analyzing how knowledge, language, and power are intertwined. He showed that what societies consider to be truth is actually shaped by historical and institutional forces, not by fixed structures. Overall, post-structuralism challenges us to rethink meaning, truth, and how we understand language, encouraging a more critical and flexible approach to text. So that ends my part. So to discuss more about this era, let's welcome the next reporter.
So now let's talk about the deconstruction developed by Jacques Derrida, 1930-2004. So Jacques Derrida was a French philosopher known as the founder of deconstructionism, and he was born in El Algeria, and became the prominent figure in continental philosophy and literary theory. And also his work critically examined Western philosophy and language, emphasizing the instability of meaning and the inherent nature of writing. So the core concept is that meaning it's not fixed or inherent of words or text. So instead, meaning arises from the relationships and differences between words within a language system. So the key aspects of deconstructions include: first, ultimate interpretation, meaning it's not stable or final and text can have multiple interpretations. So the second one is language as a system of signs. So meaning is generated through the relationships between words rather than being inherent in the words themselves. So the last one is interplay of differences, meaning is defined by what a word is not rather than what it is. So like for example, the meaning of black is partly defined by its difference from white or blue or red and many more. So overall, Deconstruction highlights the instability and ambiguity of language, encouraging us to examine how meaning is constructed and deconstructed through linguistic structure. So I think that's all my part. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. So I am Maraka Marvi, and today I will going to discuss about the key figures in post-structuralism. Since we already done tackling about the structuralism, now discussed by John Kevin Rundina a while ago, now let's dive into the topic about the post-structuralism. So in here, we have a person named Roland Barthes. Yes, Roland Barthes. He declared the death of the author, arguing that the author's intentions are not the definitive guide to a text meaning. So, famous for his idea of the death of the author, no, which means that the meaning of a text should not be limited to what the author intended. So, remember that the one that mentioned by Roland, that a text should not be limited to what the author intended, because he do believe that once a work is published, the reader becomes more important than the writer interpreting it or interpreting the text or the work by the different authors, because he do believe that readers have many different perspective or point of view about what they have understood in or upon reading those texts or words. And also, Roland argued that the meaning is not fixed, it's created by readers. So just like what I've mentioned a while ago or a minute ago, that the readers bring their own context, culture, and perspective to the text. So probably they have this, what you call this one? They give, the readers might give a conclusion about the work of different authors. And that's why this shift focus from a single truth in literature to a multiple interpretation. Because, yeah, as readers, they have different kind of ideas in their mind. So, with that, they have different interpretation about the text or the work. So, that's the first figures in post-structuralism. So for the next one, we have Michel Foucault. He do believe that knowledge and power are closely linked. According to him, the way we understand things or knowledge is shaped by power and social systems. He studied how history and truth are influenced by these power structures through a method called genealogy. So again, it's called genealogy. So Michel Foucault explored how power and knowledge are connected. He said that what society considers truth is shaped by power relations. Do you understand? According to Michel Foucault, that what society considers truth is shaped by power relations. And also, he claimed that discourse or the way we speak, the way we write, the way we think about the topics doesn't just reflect knowledge, but it creates it. And also, he developed the method of genealogy, which traces how ideas and institutions like presence or sexuality develop over time and influenced by power structures. And also, Michel Foucault questioned traditional ideas of progress and objective truth, suggesting instead that knowledge is always influenced by social and historical context. So, I think that would be all about the key figures in post-structuralism, and I hope there's learnings that you've gained in my discussion, in a short discussion or a brief discussions. And so that would be all, guys, and I think that's the end of my part, and thank you for your listening.
Good day, everyone. Now let's talk about the Lacanian psychoanalysis. So, Jacques Lacan extended post-structuralism and psychoanalysis, emphasizing the decentered self. So, what is Lacanian psychoanalysis? Jacques Lacan was a thinker who believed that we are not born with a full, complete idea of who we are. Instead, our identity, or who we think we are, is built from outside things like language or the words we learn and use. So, other people's images of us, our own desires, uh, or what we want but can never fully get. Lacan said that the self is decentered. That means you are not one stable, strong, complete person deep inside. You are more like a puzzle made from bits and pieces. What you see, hear, feel, and imagine about yourself. Also, Lacan believed that the unconscious mind, or the hidden part of your mind, works like a language, full of signs, meanings, and hidden messages. But language is not perfect. Words can never fully describe who you really are. So, you always feel like something is missing, and you spend your life trying to fill that missing piece. But you never completely succeed. So, for example, the mirror stage. So, Lacan explained that when a baby looks in a mirror for the first time and recognizes themselves, something important happens. So, now let's explain the example step by step. So, the baby sees the reflection and thinks, that's me. They feel happy because the reflection looks complete and perfect. But in real life, the baby is still weak, clumsy, and doesn't fully control their body. The mirror image is just an image, not the real baby. Still, the baby starts to believe this perfect image is who I am. From then on, the baby's idea of self is based on an image, an outside picture, not their true inner self. So, what happens? So, the baby or the later adult always feels like they are missing something inside. They keep trying to become that perfect version of themselves, but they never really can. Their true self is split, the outside image versus the messy, real inside. So, that's all of my part, everyone. Thank you for listening.
So, good morning everyone. Today we'll delve into the fascinating area of literary theory that shifts our focus from the author's intention and the text itself to a crucial element in the reading experience. So, we're going to talk about reader response theory, a perspective about the reader response or reader response theory that is fundamentally change how we understand the creation of meaning in literature. So at its heart, reader's response theory emphasizes that the meaning isn't inherently in words on the page or waiting to be discovered. Instead it actively constructed by the readers through their engagement with the text. So our individual experiences, like our beliefs, our knowledge, and even our emotional state, plays a vital role in shaping what we or what the text or a text means to us. So we have here two prominent figures. So these are Stanley Fish and Wolfgang Iser. So first is we have Stanley Fish, a highly influential figure in literary studies, who argued that the meaning arises not from the text itself but from the interpretative communities to which reader belongs. So these communities, whether in academic, cultural, or even social, shares a certain strategies and assumption about reading. So Fish posited that our interpretations are largely shaped by these shared frameworks, suggesting that we have perceived as an individual reading experience is. So, in fact, no, deeply influenced by the collective understanding of our interpretative group, he famously asked, "Is there a text in this class?" So, suggesting that the meaning contingent upon the interpretative strategies brought to bear on it. So, another figure is we have Wolfgang Iser, no? Another key figure who focused on the interaction between the text and the reader's consciousness. So he introduces the concept of the implied reader, or a hypothetical reader that the text seems to be addressing and who possesses the necessary competencies to understand it. So Iser highlighted the gaps and the blanks within a text. So these are the unsaid elements that the readers actively feels using their own imagination and experience, thus participating in the creation of the story. So for Iser, meaning emerges from the dynamic interplay between the text structure or textual structure and the reader's act of concentration. So the text provides a framework, but the reader actively brings it to life. So in conclusion, reader-response theories spearheaded by the thinkers like Stanley Fish and Wolfgang Iser and expanded upon the reception theory underscores the vital and active role of the readers in the creation of meaning. So it reminds us that the reader or reading is not a passive act of absorbing information, but a dynamic process of engagement, like interpretation and even in collaboration with the text. So our individual and the collective experience shapes our understanding, making each reading a unique and evolving encounter. So I guess that's it. So to continue, we have Miss Janelyn Rivera.
So hello, good morning everyone. And now let's move on to the next topic, which is the post-structuralism and its impact on literary theory. But first, let us define the post-structuralism. So what is post-structuralism? Post-structuralism, this is a philosophical and literary movement that emerged in the late 20th century as a response to structuralism. It challenges the idea of fixed, stable meanings and structures, arguing that meaning is fluid and shaped by language, power, and cultural context. So in short, post-structuralism, this is a way of thinking. It rejects the idea that there's only one single and correct meaning to anything, especially text. So post-structuralism, it challenges fixed interpretations and invites multiple readings. Now, when we say fixed interpretations, this is a belief or idea that a text has only one single and correct meaning intended by the author. So post-structuralism, they rejects this idea. It challenges the fixed interpretations. Now, when we say multiple readings, of course, as a reader, we have different interpretations of the text. It depends on our backgrounds, it depends on our perspectives or experiences. So with that, post-structuralism, it invites multiple readings. So post-structuralism, it emphasizes the importance of cultural context, ideology, and power relation in understanding the text. Now, cultural context, this is social, historical, or political environment in which text is created and interpreted. So with that, cultural context, it heavily influences the meaning of the text. Next, we have the ideology. So ideology, this is a set of belief and values that shape how people or individual understand the world and their place in it. So here in post-structuralism, the text often reflects. And next, we have the power relations. So power relations, it is ways in which power operates in society. So here in post-structuralism, it influences who has control and how meaning is controlled and of course created. There are interdisciplinary connections that was enriched by the post-structuralism, and these are the semiotics, the psychoanalysis, the feminism, the gender studies, and cultural studies. Now, first, the semiotics. So, semiotics, this is the study of signs and symbols and how they create meaning. So, here in post-structuralism, it uses semiotics to analyze how meaning is constructed in text. Next, we have the psychoanalysis. So, psychoanalysis, this is a study of unconscious mind and how it influences our behavior. So, here in post structuralism, it helps understand the hidden meaning and motivation in text. Next, we have the feminism. So, feminism, this is a movement that advocates for women's rights and equality. So here, post-structuralists, they they examines how gender shapes meaning and power in text. Next, we have the gender studies. So, gender studies, this is the academic field exploring social and cultural constructions of gender. So, here in post-structuralism, it helps analyze how gender is represented and performed in text. Next, we have the cultural studies. So, cultural studies, this is the interdisciplinary field that examines the relationship between the culture, the power, and the society. So, here in post structuralism, it provides tools for analyzing cultural texts and practices. So overall, post-structuralism, it argues that text has multiple meanings, so not just one shaped by the reader's perspective and cultural context. It also highlights the role of power and ideologies in shaping interpretations. So this approach, the post-structuralism, it enriches the field like semiotics, feminism, cultural studies, gender studies, etc. And that's all about the post-structuralism